The clock read 11:47 p.m. when Violet bolted upright in bed, like someone rising from the grave. Her room was quiet, except for the soft breathing of her roommates. Thank God, they're asleep. Violet had almost drifted off herself. It had been a crazy day, but escaping Lunaris Academy tonight was more important than sleep, no matter how tired she was. West House was dead quiet, which meant she had to be extra careful. Tiptoeing, Violet climbed down from her bed and grabbed the satchel she'd stashed underneath. After that humiliating scenting incident, there was no way she was staying at this school. She'd prepped while her roommates were out. Now, the time had come. Unzipping the satchel, Violet pulled out her all-black outfit, perfect for staying hidden. She laced up her boots, adjusted her dark jacket, and tucked her hair into the hood. Showtime. Violet slung her backpack over her shoulders. Inside was the rest of the money Nancy had given her. Some clothes, a water bottle, and snacks. Honestly, she didn't have a solid plan, but she'd figure it out once she was past the school walls. Going through the front door was a no-go. The dorm monitor always hung out in the lobby. Even if Catherine said he'd look the other way, Violet knew better. He worked for Asher, and he'd totally rat her out. She'd be busted before she even reached the doorknob. Besides, what excuse would she give for being out this late? Violet was no dummy, though. She'd scoped out the dorm monitor's patrol. Every half hour, like clockwork, he checked the main hallways and side doors. That gave her a 10-minute window to escape, and she had to use every second. As quietly as possible, Violet slipped out of her room. The tiny creak of the door hinge made her heart jump. She froze, glancing back at her sleeping roommates. They were still out cold. Letting out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding, Violet stepped into the hallway, light as a feather on the polished wood floors. Her target was a small window near the storage room in the back of the house. She'd checked it earlier, unlocked. It led to a narrow strip of grass hidden by thick trees, the perfect escape route. From there, she'd head straight into Silverglade, the school's creepy woods. She couldn't leave through the main gate. The guards would definitely stop her. No matter how tough Lunaris Academy's walls were, Violet was sure she'd find a way out. Truthfully, she was terrified. But if she wanted to get away from Asher, this was the only way. Violet barely breathed as she crept through the corridors. Nearing the storage room, she pressed herself against the wall. Soft footsteps echoed behind her. The dorm monitor. Her heart hammered as she peeked around the corner. He strolled past, humming, totally clueless. Violet waited, tense, until his footsteps faded. Then, she darted into the storage room, moving quickly but carefully. The room reeked of dust and old furniture. Violet ignored the mess. Her eyes were locked on the small window. She gently pushed it open. Cool night air hit her face, smelling of dirt and freedom. Violet swung one leg over the ledge, landing softly on the grass below, then the other. She crouched low and eased the window shut. The school grounds were dark, lit only by a few streetlights. The reality of what she was doing hit her. She was alone, outside, in the dead of night. Everything was vast and silent, and she was scared, stiff. God only knew what Asher would do if he found out. But this was a risk she had to take. This was it. Do or die. Violet started walking, sticking close to the huge trees behind West House. Their thick branches hid her from anyone watching. The chilly air nipped at her face, but she barely felt it. She walked fast, listening hard for any sign she was being followed. So far, so good. No guards, no wolves. She made it to the woods. For once, she was glad she had her map. It showed her the way in the dark. Every little noise, crunching leaves, snapping twigs, made her jump. But everything seemed okay. At least, that's what she kept telling herself. Violet didn't know when it started, but she had a creepy feeling that someone was watching her. She tried to tell herself it was just nerves, but the feeling stuck around. She should have known. Fate had never been kind, and tonight was no exception. 15 minutes into her escape, Violet realized she was totally lost. Either the signal was bad or the coordinates were wrong. And that creepy feeling of being watched hadn't gone away. Then, a howl echoed through the trees, and Violet froze. Had they discovered she was gone? No, impossible. No one saw her leave. Her roommates wouldn't even know until morning. But Violet wasn't naive. Besides the guards at the gate, werewolves were patrolling the grounds. Lunaris Academy was huge. The walls seemed to go on forever. If only she'd reached them. Violet held her breath. Werewolves had exceptional hearing. Even the smallest sound could give them away. She huddled in the shadows under a huge oak tree, hidden by thick bushes. Unlike the dorm grounds, the silver glade was pitch black. Good for hiding, bad for seeing. Without her phone's flashlight, she was blind. Not even the moon was out, and wolves had great night vision. Yeah, she was in deep trouble. She knew she had to move, but she couldn't risk making a sound. Violet waited, barely breathing. Then a wolf appeared from the darkness. Violet's heart nearly stopped. She couldn't see much, but the low growl and glowing gold eyes were unmistakable. The sound vibrated through the ground. The wolf started sniffing the air, and the hairs on Violet's arms stood up. It was tracking her scent. So that's what the scenting was for. They could find her. They knew she was trying to escape. Thinking fast, Violet grabbed a rock and threw it in the opposite direction. The wolf turned and bolted after the sound. This was her chance. Violet took off, running as fast as her legs would carry her. She knew the wolf must have heard her by now. Suddenly, another snarl, closer this time, sharper and angrier. Oh no, more than one! Her stomach lurched. Not just a wolf. Wolves, plural. And they weren't just tracking her. They were hunting her. She was the prey. Violet didn't know what they'd do if they caught her, but she had a bad feeling about it. She'd underestimated the school's defenses. Big mistake. The growls got louder, closer. Heavy footsteps crashed through the underbrush. Branches tore at her jacket as she ran, leaves and dirt flying. She didn't dare look back. They were right behind her. Maybe the universe had a sick sense of humor, because Violet spotted West House in the distance. Following it, she burst from the woods. Her phone's flashlight beam cutting through the darkness just enough to catch glimpses of 4 wolves hot on her trail. This time, she ran smart, dodging around trees and bushes at the last second, making the wolves change direction and giving herself a tiny head start. But a nagging feeling told her they could have caught her if they wanted to. She'd seen plenty of chances they'd had, yet they seemed content to just chase. In fact, they'd herded her right back towards West House. Still, the thought of those giant teeth kept Violet's feet pumping. Terror, not logic, was in the driver's seat. West House loomed closer, and Violet sprinted for it, lungs burning, legs aching. Somehow she made it, slamming the door shut and collapsing against it. She gasped for air, heart pounding. At that point, she didn't even care if the RA caught her. Violet sat there, shaking, listening for any sign of the wolves. But there was nothing. No furious scratching at the door, no attempt to break in. Just silence. A weird, unsettling silence. Maybe there was some unspoken rule. Or maybe they were afraid of Asher. She didn't know. All that mattered was that she was safe. Not that it made her feel any better. By tomorrow, Asher would find out what she'd done, and that terrified her. That fear clinging to her, Violet hurried back to her room. Slamming the door shut, she stood there, half expecting wolves to burst through. When nothing happened, she let out a long breath. That was too close. Dragging herself to bed, Violet suddenly stopped. Something felt off about the room. She couldn't put her finger on it, but the air felt different, charged with something strange. Goosebumps erupted on her skin as her gut screamed that she wasn't alone. Heavy stillness hung in the air, thick and suffocating. Violet's pulse quickened as she scanned the dimly lit room, her breath shallow. The soft glow of the bedside lamp flickered slightly, making the shadows dance. Every instinct screamed that something was watching her, lurking just beyond what her eyes could see. She forced herself to swallow the lump in her throat and took a cautious step forward. The floor creaked under her weight, an eerie reminder that she wasn't imagining things. Had someone been here while she was gone? Her bag was still on the chair, untouched, her books stacked neatly on the desk. But something was different. It wasn't the objects, it was the air itself, charged with an unspoken tension. Then, a scent, faint but familiar. It wasn't hers, wasn't Alice's. It was something deeper, wilder. The realization sent a chill down her spine. This was not an accident. Someone was in her room.
Wait, that's not the end. You've just had a free taste. Now get the full story on the Pocket FM app, link in description. Check out our next video and playlist, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.